Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Vipul, you want to read the seven realities?
Yes, I will read.
Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Great.
The seven realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or performance of religious ceremonies, and rights to the understanding of the following seven realities. Number one, the only real existence is that of the one and only God, who is the self in every finite self. Two, the only real love is the love for this infinity, that is God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, become one with its truth, God. The point number three, the only real sacrifice is that in which pursuance of this love, all things body, mind, position, welfare, even life itself are sacrificed. Point four, the only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of the worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. Point five, though the only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is inner dweller in good people and is so called bad, in saint and in so called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand, without expectations of rewards. When compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without slightest trace of enmity or hatred, or to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. Point 6. The only real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgences in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of the character. Point 7. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual amidst every kind of hardship is resigned with perfect calm will to the will of the God. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai.
और मेहर बाबा
Baba ki.
Jai Baba, thank you. So we were to review the Excel sheet over Saturday and come back with a discussion. Ashok, you want to share your screen?
I'll share my screen because I just I'll share my screen so that any changes I can make there in itself.
Sure, sure.
So I am open for all sorts of suggestions, improvements. I'll just open my screen. 1 second. I mean, I can open the Excel file. It'll be easier for everybody to.
Before that, let's just go around the group. So I heard Mama's comments that he could not spend time. Have the others spent time on the sheet? Because otherwise it becomes a monologue. It's or we can change the format to Ashok going into it over details. So how many people have actually spent time and have feedback, comments, and value adds for the work? Folks? No mics are unmuting, so that gives it away. Okay, so Ashok, here's what I suggest. Are you there? Ashok?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm sorry, I was muted.
Yeah. So all I'm saying is probably you need to walk through this, and then we will figure out if at all we need to, we can discuss it as you walk through this. So basically, it's a walkthrough of the chapter itself, because all you've done is tabulated the 6 types, but then integrated it with the earlier chapter, as well as linked it to action and inaction, which is a subsequent chapter. So this is the high level summary of what he's done. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ashok.
Yes, yeah, you're right. That's what I have done. And it was also discussed. I mean, I tried to. One more thing I have done, which I want to show, is that in the rows 54 to 61, between non-violence of the brave and non-violence of the coward, I tried to make a comparison, that is between principle 2 and 5. I'll run through, but there, where the main aspect to keep in mind is that the non-violence of the brave is based solely on love. And in the text, in the discourse, it says non-violence of the coward is based solely on non-love, or it is like,
okay,
that is a distinction which they have made between the two, because so that is one thing which is there in the below. And in the inference, I have put the last line of the part 1. So
okay,
that is what I have done. I mean, this is just a spreadsheet. We can make it better.
So here's what I suggest before you get started. Just click on the home button for me, the home on top, so that the ribbon will get hidden. Just click on home, yeah, on the left top. Oops.
Home is
no, on Excel, on Excel.
Oh, on Excel. Okay, sorry, yes.
Yeah. So, and then you can increase the font, the zoom at the bottom to maybe 130 or 150. And then over to you, sir.
Is this okay?
Is this okay, everybody else? We did 150 yesterday. So.
Oh, 150. 150, yeah. Okay.
I mean, we know what's there in the macro picture, so we'll start looking at it at detail. Yeah.
And shall I go one by one principle of one, or shall I go horizontal? You tell me.
Yeah, take principle by principle, and if you have discourses open, you can actually show it there and then continue here, right?
I have
soft
not
copy. Oh, okay. Don't bother.
Shall I open it? One second.
No, don't bother. If you have it handy, you can open it.
I have the discourse. You can tell the page.
Page is page
75, I think. No.
70. It starts from the part 2 is page 72, and part 1 is, one second. Part 1 is page 67. So it's between 67 onwards, both chapters.
Okay, violence to non-violence, and then action, inaction.
Yeah, so it's 3 chapters that are kind of getting tabulated here, but it's more than the chapters itself. The concept of sanskaras as well will come in, and it's fascinating. I've been thinking about this since yesterday, so it's very interesting. Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, as Karthik has already announced, this is a combination of the 2 chapters of violence and non-violence, and violence and non-violence further explained, and action and inaction. We're trying to link up what we are reading, sort of joining the dots, so to speak. And with God speaks as the string and the discourses as the beads, or how to conduct our lives. With that backdrop, what I've done is that from principle 1 to principle 6, I put it into the spreadsheet, and also given it a color scheme, as in if you see, the principle 1 is dark green and principle 2 is a little lighter green. That is just to show the intensity of its effect on what we do. And I've also given it a star. So the principle 1 has got, if you come to row 8, it's got 6 stars, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like that I have gone, because in terms of its significance on our path, whether we are unwinding or creating or reaching a state of no sanskaras or zero sanskaras, or the state of ASSGSB, that is action springing spontaneously of God realized being. So that's the whole concept of this spreadsheet. Yeah. Karthik very brilliantly has shown us the various other variables like motive and other things which was there in his brilliant presentation. So I think we have to read both in together. But anyway, I'll just run you through. So here, principle one is non-violence, pure and simple. It's based on divine love, and here uh, one sees everyone oneself, and here one sees all as one's own self and is beyond friendship and enmity. Never under any circumstances a single thought of violence enter one's mind. This is a very idealistic stage where not even a single thought of violence enters one's mind. And here, according to my interpretation, or I put in the sanskaras, here it is a situation of where it's a zero-sum game, as Kama puts it. So it's a zero sanskaras or no sanskaras, and it's beyond winding or unwinding. So it's a state, is the seventh plane of involution. So such a soul is in the state of God realization, self-realization, right? And in terms of action, uh, obviously this is a state of perfection. So it's intelligent action or conscious inaction, right? Uh, if you go through page 252 and 253 of God Speaks, they talk about this as this situation where conscious inaction is uh, explained with an example of a baby who's in cradle and he's sleeping unaware of its surroundings. And
So the action, just to interrupt here briefly, we will read 252, 253, which is from God Speaks, because it again covers the action in action with different examples. It's just 2 pages, but it's a very good supplement to link to what we're doing right now. So we'll do that after this.
After this, you can do that. And some of my comments are that this is the best form of non-violence because it is the stage where the main attribute is divine love, and it is our ultimate goal of life. That is getting God realized, self-realized, and being one with God. So this is the ideal. If you can reach this stage, but very few can reach this stage. We all know that from the various um mentions in discourses. So this is the pinnacle of our existence, in the sense that when you are in this stage of non-violence, pure and simple, you are uh, at the epitome of your spirituality or spiritual journey. Coming next to, if I can move it this way, yeah, so that it's more.
Ashok, Ashok,
Yeah.
may I interrupt you?
Yes.
There are a few comments you have made, remarks, comments.
Oh yes, yes. Okay.
In the main attribute, after that you have something AB.
Okay. Those are my remarks. This is for my own. This is basically for my own remembrance that this is the ultimate goal of life. His AB remarks are my own personal remarks. Okay, it's not taken from any part of God Speaks or Discourses. This is just for my own.
I was trying to decipher that AB, like what all can be that as per comma expansion.
No. AB is Ashok Bansali.
Okay.
Yeah, Kama has really set the level high, and he would say A and B means something. No. That is just
So
my.
we should call it. You should call it ABC. Our Ashok Bansali Chancellor.
And then the influence is the last. As I said, it should be. It's the last sentences of part one. Okay, all taken from the discourses. Then we come to the second one. Okay, that's the second.
So just 1 second.
Yeah.
If you can
Any
freeze
questions?
the pane, just freeze the pane so that we can see the left column as well, right? So just keep your cursor on I7, I mean C7. Yeah, okay. Keep it on C7 maybe, C7 or C5 and freeze it. C7, C8 maybe.
Okay.
And you can freeze, yeah, you can freeze. Perfect. Just click on view again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Actually, That's right. That's a very nice suggestion. Yeah. Okay. Then we come to non-violence of the brave. So this is based on unlimited pure love, and this is a sort of a precondition, or let's say a stage before the reaching the principle one, and a person who is on this stage is basically is preparing to reach the God, the seventh plane, or the God realization. And so this applies to all those who, although not one with all through actual realization, consider no one as their enemy. They try to win over even the aggressor through love and give up their lives if attacked, not through fear but through love. The key thing is that they give up their lives, not they do not react violently, but they take it as their as their uh, you know fate, and they do it through love. And it's mentioned as the non-violence of the brave. And this is a stage where you are unwinding your sanskaras, and it is a type of an intelligent action, because you are actually, when you go to the chapter on action and inaction, it says any action which is uh, uh, leading you towards God realization is intelligent action. And if you are unwinding your sanskaras, reducing your sanskaras, or reaching to the zero sum game, it is intelligent action. And it is based on unlimited pure love. And this stage is the stage before the best we practice before non-violence. That's before the stage which I just now said. This is the stage before that. So in the hierarchy of our practice, this is the penultimate stage, and it is based solely on love. Okay. Any questions?
Just to complete it, maybe we can have another set of rows for examples, and yet another set of rows for what we think are personalities or people that belong here. I mean, obviously, perfect masters for the first one.
Okay, I will note down.
I'm just thinking aloud. Thinking aloud.
Then it's okay. It's okay. This is actually, this is why the brainstorming will help. Examples, and second one, what you said? A row for examples and
actual people or personalities or whatever, right? So
right types.
You can,
yeah, okay, we'll add that. Yeah, this
sure.
This is meant to help us in the understanding. And I have one more suggestion, which very nicely Kama has mentioned. He says that we should do this we should try to join all the chapters, because all are ultimately related to reaching God realization. So it's like joining the dots. That, of course, I would leave it for the entire group to do it, but ultimately we all should read and join the dots and internalize it, how we can use it in our journey. Yeah, valid point, Kama, Karthik, valid point. So going on to the next one. Okay, I just want to clarify that these two are this principle 1 and principle 2 are parts of non-violence, and there are only two parts to the non-violence. Yes, Mamaji.
Regarding what Karthik told, personalities, Discourses has a chart wherein all the different strata are mentioned, like Jivan Mukta to the Paramahamsa to the Sadguru, all that level, Kutub, in different terminologies. So those can be
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
You can take all the details from there, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jai Baba, can I speak?
Please.
Sure.
One example that comes to me, my head, is Gandhiji. Maybe he was from this stage, non-violence, violence. Hello?
We are all thinking on those lines.
Yeah, we are all thinking.
Whenever I speak, there is silence. I didn't. Anyway, so yeah, that's
what I'm thinking.
I mean, relating it to people who have seen in life, it's easy to understand.
Yeah, but when we mention Gandhiji, that would be very controversial because everybody has a lot of opinion on that. So we can
Yeah,
put
but I
that
mean,
back to you.
broadly, what he did was he did get us independence, and he was non-violent. Now, internally or whatever else we think his ideology was, that is different. Yeah, but I
Yeah,
still
As I was
feel for
saying
the larger
personality,
portion.
as I was
Karthik.
saying personality, I was nervous about that because there's possibility of a lot of controversy on how we classify, especially as we go right. So I think personality is, in my opinion, not a good thing. I'd rather support
Yeah.
what Mama said, where we can take the titles, the Kutub, the Jivan Mukta, that we can classify. Obviously, as we go right, we may not have anything in the column, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's a better way.
Yeah,
Sanjay, are you also in
because
agreement?
we all, yeah, I second your thoughts. I was about to say that
Yeah,
because we have limited understanding of the people around,
understanding. We don't have
and
any
let's not get into
examples of time.
slotting people into
Yes,
categories. Yeah.
yes,
Okay, we
agree.
will not slot, then we'll slaughter then.
Yes,
Go for it, Namita.
we are getting slaughtered here. Yeah. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jay Baba. Okay, moving on. Now we get into the phase of the different types of violence. Here, violence also has been categorized into 4 types: non-violent violence, selfless violence, non-violence of the coward, and selfish violence. Now, I'll take up the third type, non-violent violence. Here, the violence done solely to defend the weak, where there is no question of self-defense or self-motivation, is non-violent violence. This is a very uh, unique type of violence where you are doing some act, but it is done to not for any selfish motives. There's no ego here. There's no selfish motives. No correlation or connection or relation like we have in the next one, the fourth one. But here it is done only with the intention of defending the weak, and uh, so it's known as non-violent violence, and it's it creates good sanskaras, and it is impersonal, so to say, in terms of, you know, it's and you can call it impersonal intelligent action based on unlimited love. The example is the case of the aggressor nation. Here I put examples. In the earlier ones, I probably have not put the examples. There are not many. There's not any mention in the discourses. We can think of some. And so here the strong nation fighting for the freedom, sovereign, independence of a weaker nation without any motive. Here, most important thing is that there's no motive. There's no uh, underlying any intentions or, you know, visible or invisible, and
Self-interest. Yeah.
there's no self-interest. That's absolutely right. And here this is something we practiced before the non-violence of the brave. We saw the non-violence of the brave. So if you are on the path towards God realization, you start practicing this. You start with this, because what they have said is that you start with selfless violence. That's this third one, the fourth one. Then you go to 3, 2, 1. It's like the hierarchy, the pyramid, the spiritual pyramid, if I can call it. So basically, from 4, 3, 2, 1. That's how you. That's the path given in the discourses. So those of you who are just like us, we can start with selfless violence. Once we have mastered selfless violence, we master non-violent violence or based on unlimited violence. Once we have mastered this, then the non-violence of the brave. So you are on the path or the journey of uh, reaching or moving forward. So this is one of the preconditions, one of the things which we can practice. Okay, one more thing is that this is neither based on love or non-love. It's mentioned very clearly in the discourses. It's based on duty. So here the main attribute or the main driving force, you can call it, or the motive also, is duty. Any questions or anything which is I'm not clear on? So moving on, we come to selfless violence. Here, I've added the word based on, in the discourses, they're saying based on limited love, but here, for clarity, we have added the word human. So based on limited human love, because here there is some sort of a connect, or you have there is personal human love, because some interest exists. There is some level of connection. So here violence is done in self-defense when one is attacked treacherously and with no other selfish motive. So examples given are saving one mother from, from a wild person, or saving one motherland when it is attacked. So these are the two. So these are two, you know, examples given in the.
Ashokji, I think you may not need not write human here actually, because animals also have this actually.
Okay.
So that's not necessary, I suppose. Yeah.
I'll just highlight.
Like mother of a puppy also tries to save her, the babies. Yeah.
Okay. Point taken. Okay.
Yeah.
We had a deliberation on this, but then we said that whether it is to be mentioned. Yeah, and in the discourses also, I think they have not mentioned.
They have not mentioned in discourses. So Ashok, we can change it. Yeah.
I'll just
Sanjay,
change it
good point.
while we. Yeah. So that's why I mentioned, because it was not in the. It was not in the. Anyway, thank you, Sanjay ji. And then here the motive is personal love, or it's and some interest exists, and it's personal and direct, right? Then moving on, non-violence of the coward. One second. I'm unable to move the 1 second. Okay, anyway, I was unable to move that. Sorry, something. Okay, yeah. Non-violence of the coward. Okay, this is based on. This is something which is based on limited weakness of character and mind. Here, basically, cowardice is not to be is not something we should encourage, because you do not resist aggression because of fear and no other reason belong to this class. So it's basically you're scared.
Basically, this fear is self-love actually.
Yes. Okay.
You may call fear as self-love actually. So because you are so self-obsessed, you want to preserve yourself. And that's how you fear.
Absolutely.
And it's also your near and dear ones actually. That's why we fear for them. Yeah, Baba.
If I can take an analogy, if you permit me, although it's not in the discourses, presently we have seen a lot of people hoarding oxygen because they're scared of death and they don't bother about the others. I do not know whether it can come into this sort of a classification, and they wouldn't help out anybody, but they just think about their self. Yeah, you rightly said it is towards self.
We lost you, Ashokji.
Yeah, Ashok, we're not able to hear you. For a second, I was thinking it's my connection.
Hello, Ashok.
Let's give him a minute to come back. Probably it's his internet that's recycling.
This is powerful.
Ashok, we lost you for a minute, so you'll have to say whatever you said again.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
I
thought something was ringing. Okay, all I'm saying is that I'm coming to the last part. That is the sixth type of mention, but it is the fourth type of non-violence. This is really gross, according to me. It's not the word gross is not mentioned, but I'm saying that it's based on hatred and lust. Oh, there's a spelling error. I'm sorry for the typos. It is based on hatred and lust, and when violence is done for selfish motives by an individual or nation, for power, selfish gain, and so forth, is called selfish violence. It creates, according to my interpretation, you can correct me, this is selfish violence. It's mentioned there, but it creates powerful bad sanskaras, because you are again, somehow getting attached to lust, greed, and anger. Because anger also is based on hatred, and it is the greed, the lust for power, lust for the nation, lust for somebody for power, position, or for a nation trying to overthrow a government. I don't know. There can be many interpretations, but this is to be avoided because it creates gross impressions. This last part, I just want to read and of course, this is getting unintelligent action of deeds And here in the earlier one, fifth one, creates unintelligent action. And I have used the word egocentric. This is of course my remarks because it is fueling the ego and should be avoided, right? And I'll just read the inference which is there in part one, the last part. Okay, I think it's page 71. Yeah. Action there should be therefore should be governed by not be governed by any means of slogans based on incomplete and insufficient ideas about non-violence or violence. It should be a spontaneous outcome of divine love, which is above duality, and of spiritual understanding, which is above rules. So I think this is a key takeaway in that chapter. The balance all are, from the action continuum slides and my discussion with Kama and Karthik. This is what it is. I hope this throws some light, is helpful for you guys in your spiritual journey. Any questions or any other observations? I am open and thankful to Baba for this group.
So Ashokji, you can put 7 stars against AB. And AB is also absolute beauty. Yeah, Jai Baba.
Thank you. No, this star thing comes from my credit rating. A little bit of my what I do comes in my work. So I've said let's put a star or a grade. And color, I learned from this group when you all use so much of color in your presentations.
Ashokji, one or two suggestions or thought which comes to my mind. So this sanskaric load or the non-sanskaric activities. So if you can draw a sort of a band from the last column, which is the red one, total bad samskaras attaching, binding to you.
Yes.
Till the first column, that is no samskaras. So
yes.
Can we represent in some sort of a flag-like thing, starting with red, ending with emptiness, before that blue?
Yeah, I'll try that. Actually, Karthik has also mentioned that he'll try to improve from this. This as a basic document, we'll try to improvise this. Karthik, am I right?
That's why.
Yes.
So each characteristic which you are trying to represent in all the different columns. So we can put a sort of a, I don't know how to do it, but that comes to my mind.
Actually, from yesterday, yeah, sure. I think that's a good idea. Actually, from yesterday, I've been thinking we can switch the axis, right? Just transpose this. So the columns become rows and rows become columns.
Okay.
And that will fix it. And that will also make it visually appealing. And once we animate it, one at a time comes up, and then I'll try to play with this.
Yes. I think that's a good idea, Karthik.
Take your input, Ashok. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just a sort of a first draft, you can call it, or
Yes, it is awesome. I said you yesterday itself. So it's trying to put all our understanding into a graphic picture, so that we can come back to this whenever we need and try to put in something every time. Understand things on a sort of a mathematical basis.
Yes, and also you can internalize it, use it whenever you have any dilemmas, questions.
And regarding the examples, pardon Nandita, Numita there, we will not put any examples from our own thinking. We will take only examples from Baba or Baba literature. That would be better, I think. Otherwise, it leads to a lot of unnecessary comments from others also.
I had put something here called as non-violence of the strong, but that is not there, so I removed it. I had put something here, but I have not put it because I'm not taking anything which is not there, and in the discourses, because for such a phenomenal work, and that too authored by Baba, we can only interpret it We can't do anything much more. Agreed,
Much as
Mama.
I like what you're saying, Mamaji, the idea of giving some more examples might still be relevant, because at least something that you can relate to from the examples that we see in the book, right? So that's my thought, but I'm open to what everybody agrees on, right? So
I think you can
the
put
idea
it in
of
an
examples would help us understand it from a day-to-day life standpoint. So I know some of them could be controversial. Personality, surely I agree, is just a waste of time. Let's not do that. But examples, right? So we can put it with the caveat saying that assume, whatever, right? So because context is everything, and that's where the controversy will start, right? So they'll say, we are not sure of that being non-violent, or we are not sure if there was absence of selfishness, and so on and so forth, right? So I still think there might be a case for leaving some examples for better understanding, but I'm open to whatever everybody agrees.
I have a suggestion. Say, if I remember properly, Baba has mentioned that Arvind was at some plane, sixth plane, and he was pushed to seventh.
Aurobindo, yeah.
Arvindo. So like that, whatever is already there in the literature, those
that we can
be easily taken up without any controversy.
Point noted. Good point, Mamaji.
I think what I want to say is that what Karthik said is correct. I think, Doc Mama, what I would suggest is we can put personal life examples or even examples from third-party sources. When we read newspapers, events, whether it has to do with a person or a community or a country, we can use those examples in the appendix so that it kind of expands the horizon how we relate to each of the different 6 principles of violence and non-violence. So the more the examples, it will give us some kind of clarity. And ultimately, it is all about our own life. It is not about Baba's life. Baba is there to guide us. So the bottom line of reading all this is, how are we going to emancipate? So it will be good to put that in an appendix. And as you rightly said, whatever Baba has quoted, we can put it in the main document. Jai Baba.
That's right, appendixes. And
in fact, we can have 2 categories. One, Baba's examples, examples from Baba literature, and then our examples being separate, so that it's clear for the reader.
And Karthik, one suggestion: if you are taking something from another source, maybe from Vedanta or anywhere, we should mention the source, so that
sure,
as in cross-referencing from where it's come.
Sure, of course.
That's mandatory nowadays. Whenever you use a source, we should put it in.
Yeah, it is mandatory, but many of us do not. We sort of try to. I mean, maybe because of oversight or negligence, but we don't. And yeah, you're right. It's supposed to. It's really a publishing requirement as well, because if you're taking somebody's material. Jai Baba.
Okay, so guys, any other feedback?
Yeah,
Mamaji, repeat what you said. I'm sorry.
Ashok has spread his pyramid in a spreadsheet.
Yes.
Mamaji, yes. You're right. Mamaji, it's maybe because of my work. Because the work I do, I use spreadsheets. Of course, that's for numbers. And so I thank Kama and Karthik and all others who've given me the suggestions. This whole group has really made me evolve and get addicted to reading God Speaks and Discourses.
Okay.
Wow, addicted. Super. Way to go. Okay. Any other feedback, or we can move to the next thing?
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you, Ashok. So we'll finalize this further and make it print friendly, put some color, and then also convert it to probably a slide and then distribute it around. Okay.
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah. So now we'll just quickly read God Speaks, the 2 pages. Vipul, you want to read? If you're comfortable. Is he there? Oh, yeah, he's there.
Yeah. I'm here.
Sure. So I had it open. Yeah. So for those of you on physical books, it's page 252, Action and Inaction, supplement number 31. Over to you, Vipul.
I can't see it online, the book. Karthik?
Sorry, I'm sharing it.
Yeah.
Got it?
I got it. 31. Action and inaction. 1. In the beyond state of God, there is unconscious inaction. 2. In the state of God realization, there is conscious inaction. This is the state of perfection, but not of the perfect master. 3. The intermediate state between 1 and 2, there is a conscious action. Action promotes sanskaras, that is impressions. Sanskaras in turn breed more actions and create bindings. In this state, there is bondage. In the state of Majzu, of the seventh plane, there is unconscious action. Unconscious action. In the state of perfect masters, there is conscious active inaction. Perfect masters are free of sanskaras. They have no impressions. As such, there cannot be room for actions of their own. Their lives are of inaction, but made active because of the prevailing environmental circumstances. Actions of perfect masters are prompted by the environment, by whatever atmosphere prevails then. Examples.
I stop you here for a minute.
Yeah.
This fifth one needs some clarity. So the state of perfect master, there is conscious active inaction. So they are acting, but it is taken as inaction. Am I correct in this interpretation?
Mamaji, if I can add, I was just sharing my thoughts. It's conscious, it's active because he's in the human form, but whatever he does not create any sanskaras. I think that inaction here means, see, because action creates. See, if you go to the part 3, it says action promotes sanskaras, impressions. The part
Yes.
3. So sanskaras in turn breed more actions and create bindings. So what they're saying is that since the perfect master is above all duality or creation of any sanskaras or impressions, so here the active inaction here would, I think, imply that it does not lead to generation or creation of any sanskaras.
No,
Correct?
that is
Okay,
mentioned
Ashok, I want to
immediately.
interpret, what Doc Mama is asking. See, when you are in the seventh plane, there is no sanskaras. There is no need to discuss even that, that whether action creates sanskaras. What it says is in the first line, it says conscious inaction of the self-realized people. So there are 56 God-realized souls in different stages or states, Majzubs, Jivan Muktas, Paramahamsas, and Sadgurus. We have called it as divinity in expression, divinity in action. Sadgurus are the one who are directly working with the public to liberate them. So that is why it says conscious, active inaction. All 356 God realized souls are in conscious inaction because they don't, the 56 minus 5, they don't directly do anything with the public. They indirectly help. So you can call it conscious, passive inaction and conscious, active inaction by the Sadgurus. Because in the Baba literature, it says that they seem to be doing everything, but it's all a form of perfect inaction. So that is my understanding. So it is basically passive, conscious passive inaction and conscious active inaction. That's how I interpret it. Jai Baba.
One clarity in this. Say what all actions we do, it is driven by our mind, ego, complex. But what is that which drives this action from the Sadgurus?
Good question. See, we have to again interpret the word action in terms of context. So when we are talking about Baba, see in the normal English lingo, when we talk about action, we only think about action of deeds. We never say action of thoughts, action of words, action of deeds as per the prayer of repentance, because they all create weak, strong, and powerful sanskaras. Now, up till the sixth plane, we know there are sanskaras. The sixth plane, there is only one sanskara, basically the division between the subject, spiritual aspirant, and the objective God that he sees everywhere, right? Now, so sanskaras are there up till sixth plane. So all kinds of action has to do based on the sanskaras, how you respond. You are unwinding sanskaras. But when you become self-realized, there are no more sanskaras. So what is defined in the Baba literature about action is that the action done by a God realized being, that is why in the chapter Action Inaction, if you see that different categories that we have, segmented, intelligent action, intelligent inaction, and so on. The first one we say is ASSGRB, action springing spontaneously from a God realized being. Now we have to define what does that action mean. That action is actually inaction. Now, this might be a very paradoxical statement because they don't do anything. Things are happening by itself. Whenever we're talking about action of deeds, we are actually using our gross body, subtle body, or mental body. But remember, the Sadgurus and the God realized beings have a universal mind, and they are using their, Sachitananda state, the infinite power, knowledge, bliss, to keep the balance of energy or whatever you call it in the universe. So the action of a Sadguru or God realized being in the seventh plane is completely different from the action that we talk in our mundane world. Jai Baba.
Yes, that is what we need to clearly understand. So the action looks like a man doing something with all the say awkward mannerisms and all that, but it is actually an inaction coming from a universal thing. So that is what we need to absorb from this mind, I think. Thank you,
It's,
Kama.
it's a very good point because here the action of a self-realized being is perfectly unselfish because he has no sanskaras. So everything he's doing it is for the perfection of the world and for the perfection of humanity. Whereas the action of a gross plane human being or somebody in the subtle plane or the mental plane is still selfish, even though it is a good thing. They are unwinding sanskaras. So action up till the sixth plane is technically selfish. Whereas when you go into the seventh plane, there is only about the universal self because they have nothing else to do. They are just here to help others and guide others. Eva.
So sorry to deviate, but then is there any relevance of yoga and Vijnani sanskaras here? Kama?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
See, we have three kinds of sanskaras. Prarabdha sanskaras, which is what we all are conditioned in. Now, understanding the definition of yoga sanskaras and Vijnani sanskaras, which is in the chapter of Avatar and Discourses, which is not mentioned in God Speaks. The interesting thing is, sorry, on a side note, winding, unwinding, spending sanskaras is only in the Discourses, not in God Speaks. Also, this Vijnani sanskaras and yoga sanskaras are not mentioned in God Speaks. I always wonder why, okay. But according to the definition, Vijnani Sanskaras is what the avatar comes with him veiled when he descends on earth because of the five perfect masters and the 122 circle, right? The 10 circles or whatever, right? The mandali and all, they are all coming down with Vijnani Sanskaras. And then when Baba's avatarhood is unveiled by the Sadguru, which is what Upasni Maharaj did, starting from Baba Bhajan in 1913 to the transition from God consciousness state where he was in the coma for 2 years, from 1913 to 1921, when Upasni Maharaj finally tells Baba, okay, you are the avatar. So that is where the Vijnani Sanskaras get converted to Yoga Yoga Sanskaras. So what Baba has mentioned is that once you become God realized and you are in part of the 56 God realized souls, it's a very good question what you said. So the sanskaras that they are working on is with Yoga Yoga Sanskaras, which do not create any kind of imprint or impression. The Yoga Yoga Sanskaras are basically for executing the divine script. The movie, the divine dream is being executed through the Yoga Yoga Sanskaras of the 56 God realized souls. So that is the definition. That's a very good question. So you're right. If you're looking at sanskaras, there are no prarabdha sanskaras, but actually the God realized beings work with Yoga Yoga Sanskaras in the seventh place. Thanks. Jai Baba.
I'm still confused between active and passive, but I think I'll take that offline if others have got it.
I'll tell you what it means. It's very simple. Only the five perfect masters, Sadgurus, actively deal with the common public, right? What Shirdi Sai Baba did, what Baba Bhajan did, what Meher Baba did, right? Whereas the Paramahamsa, see, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, even though he was self-realized, he's not considered a Sadguru. He's called Paramahamsa. And I defined Ramana Maharishi as Jivan Mukta based on the table in page 278 or whatever in God Speaks, that big table, looking at all the attributes. See, this is beautiful, that table you have to master, to understand the attributes. Baba said all the 56 God realized souls are in the Sachitananda state, but their duties and functions are different. So you are seeing that the Majzub's duty is just to be in God consciousness state. The Paramahamsa is shifting, alternating between God consciousness and creation consciousness. The Jivan Mukta is parallelly on both states, whereas the Sadguru is what you call Atma Pratishtapana. That is the word. He is dealing, Sadguru is the most powerful because his duties and functions are the most prominent of them. Active and passive inaction can be defined as the functions and duties of the 56 God realized souls, depending on what states they are in. Hey, Baba.
Okay.
Kama, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
In the case of Ramakrishna Paramhansa, his guru's guru is Mahavatar Baba. So how would where would you put him, in the realized soul? Or?
No. First of all, I have to still understand your question. You're saying Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's guru's guru, you're saying?
No, not Ramakrishna Paramahamsa.
Autobiography of
Yogananda Paramhansa.
Yogananda, yeah.
Guru's guru.
I get. So Yogananda's guru was Sri Yukteswar. Sri Yukteswar's guru was, Lahiri Mahasaya. Lahiri Mahasaya's guru was Avatar Babaji.
Avatar Babaji, yes.
So that is what you call as Parama Guru. Okay. One is your direct guru who guides you, and the guru's guru is called Parama Guru, basically. Okay. So there are these kind of terminologies, basically. So I'll give you another example. There was a guy called Ganapati Muni. This was during Ramana Maharishi's time. Not many people are aware, Ganapati Muni was probably the equivalent of Adi Shankaracharya in the 19th or 20th century. He was the one who gave the name Ramana because Ramana Maharishi's name was Venkatraman. Okay. And he was his knowledge was amazing. He knew everything, but he was not enlightened. And after he met Ramana Maharishi, he realized he was his guru, even though he was elder to him. Okay. So the question here is that Ganapati Muni had a disciple. Okay, he also became enlightened. This person, I know I know his great grandson. They have a beautiful Ayurvedic clinic in Gokarna, and this great grandfather, he was like almost like a Maharishi, and he came out with 450 new Rigvedic verses, which has never happened like. So his guru Ganapati Muni and he were sitting together, and suddenly they were meditating for like 20 days or something. They had this sadhana, and suddenly this 25-year-old, this so-called Maharishi guy, who was a disciple of Ganapati Muni, started reciting, and the guru took down all the verses. Then he made a Sanskrit interpretation of that, which is published by the Bhavan Journal. It's a rare book. Okay, I'm just giving you this example where I understood that Maharishi called Ganpati Muni his guru, and he also met Ramana Maharishi. I have seen those three photographs together, and Ramana Maharishi was his Paramaguru, because it was his guru's guru. So you're right. Your question about guru and Paramaguru. Jai Baba. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Shall we go and read further?
Yeah, but Paramaguru is not a Baba term, right? I mean, it's no relation to Sadguru, just for clarity for everybody.
Baba never talked about. Another example you should take is, another example you can take is the book by Paul Brunton, In Search of Secret India. I don't know how many of you have read it. There is a separate chapter on Meher Baba and encounter with Paul Brunton. Now, just for historical purposes, Autobiography of a Yogi and In Search of Secret India are the two books which influenced Westerners to come to India for spirituality. So Paul Brunton came first, and he was in search of spiritual masters. He traveled all over India. That's the book all about. And what happened? He met Hazrat Baba Bhajan. It's an interesting story there. He also met Baba, and of course Baba is, very grounded, right? He doesn't act like, I'm like Sri Sri or like, Jaggi types, So what happens is that there is actually a negative chapter on Meher Baba, if you look at it, but it doesn't matter. Because Baba knew exactly who should be Paul Brunton's guru. See, the interesting thing is that we are all privileged to have Baba as our guru, if you consider like that. But most souls, as Baba said, if you have read the literature and discourses, between the 700 to 1400 years after the avataric cycle, who the hell are we going to follow? So the follower will be the Sadguru. And Sadguru will be a guy who used to be a friend in many birth cycles, and he has become enlightened, and he has his 12th circle, and so on and so forth. So this is how the whole thing is. So what happened was Paul Brunton then went to Chandrasekhar Swami, like there's Kamakoti Peeram in Kanchipuram, who lived for 100 years. And he directed him to Ramana Maharshi because that Shankaracharya knew that based on Paul Brunton's past life, he had a connection with Ramana Maharshi. And when he finally landed up in Arunachala, he realized, because of course it's the guru who gives you the grace and blessing to adopt him as a guru, So this is a very interesting story. You should definitely read the book and it will give you some clarity. Jai Baba.
Thank you.
Jai Baba. Vipul, can we continue and finish off the examples, please?
Yeah, examples. Number one, the beyond state of God may be compared with a child fast asleep in a cradle. It is an example of unconscious inaction. Point number two, the state of the God-realized person, not a perfect master, may be compared with a child, wide awake, but still in the cradle. This is an example of conscious inaction. 3. The state in between 1 and 2 may be compared with a child awake and out of cradle. It is an example of conscious action. 4. The state of majzub of the seventh plane may be compared with a somnambulist. The somnambulist walks about or performs other actions in sleep and is not aware of what he has done in this state. Similarly, majzub is the seventh plane of the seventh plane, does action and is not conscious of them. His is unconscious action. He eats, drinks, speaks, etc. But all this is his unconscious action. 5. The state of a perfect master may be compared with a child wide awake but inside the cradle that is continuously rocked by mankind. It is conscious active inaction. Inaction is being inside the cradle and active action in rocking the cradle by others. Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I think the analogies are something to think about. Inaction is being inside the cradle, and active inaction is the rocking of the cradle by others. So I think let's dwell on the 5 examples a little more later. I mean, not and any other questions or comments, of course, we can take now.
I think we definitely need a table here, just like violence and
Yeah.
non-violence. This kind of
Yes.
action in action relates to the 7th plane. Definitely, it's confusing because of the semantics.
True.
Yeah,
So let's try to let me try to do something here and then come back.
who's going to take the assignment? Ashok Bansali, are you going to continue with your this spreadsheet thing?
And I would like to take a breather. Actually, my emotionally, I'm not very. My mother is just on her last breath. Actually,
No problem. Don't worry. No problem.
Maybe next week.
I want a clarification. The 5th example given, inaction is being inside the cradle and active inaction is the rocking of the cradle by others. Should it be a response to the rocking of cradle is inaction? Because Sadguru is responding and doing something as per the environment he is facing. So if only the cradle, if it is rocking of the cradle is the environment, which is all the different people coming to him, and then so he is doing some action, or through him the universal thing is doing something. So that should we read it as a response to the rocking of the cradle by others?
It's a very good point. It's a very good point, because what you're saying is correct. The first line, inaction is being inside the cradle, is an example of where basically the Sadguru is just sitting without anybody bothering him. So he's in he's just by himself, let's say. And active inaction is the rocking of the cradle by others. So when the spiritual aspirants or devotees come to him and talk to him, that is where he is responding to them and helping them. So one could use that as active inaction, which is where he is actually doing conscious active inaction.
Yes.
That is how I interpret it. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. I have a thought or a question. The example 2, the state of God realized person, not a perfect master, may be compared with a child wide awake but still in the cradle. This is example of conscious inaction. Can we relate this to principle 1 in non-violence? Kama?
All the God realized beings, 56 God realized beings, are in principle 1. Jai Baba.
Okay. Yes. Jai Baba. Good. Thank you.
The difference is conscious passive inaction, excluding the Sadgurus by the 56 minus 5, and conscious active inaction by the 5 Sadgurus.
Correct.
Okay.
Hello. Before we close down, there are 2-3 things I want to talk. So just give me a minute before we end it. Right now, go ahead with the discussion. Okay.
Sure, sure. So yeah, any other questions on this action and action chapter or comments? No. So actually, we are behind on the questions. So, but obviously, these three together, we can probably combine and have a common set of questions for a quiz. So we'll get that done. Now, after violence and non-violence, the chapters on the chapter is perfection. So, do we take that up? What time is it now?
You can start reading a bit.
Yes, we can. Yeah, so let's read perfection and see how far we get, and then I will pause to give you your few minutes, Pashmina ji.
Okay.
So,
Thanks.
yeah. Okay, so I'll start with perfection. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Perfection. Two types of perfection. In order to have a comprehensive idea of what is implied in perfection, it is necessary to classify it into two categories. There is spiritual perfection, which consists in the inner realization of a transcendent state of consciousness beyond duality. There is also perfection as expressed and seen in the domain of duality. All related existence, which is a part of the manifold world of manifestation, admits of degrees. And when one is concerned with perfection as seen in this manifested world, one finds that, like other things subject to duality, it also admits of degrees. Bad and good, weakness and strength, vice and virtue are all opposites within duality. In fact, all these aspects are expressions of the one reality in different degrees. Only relative perfection in duality. Thus, evil is not utterly evil, but goodness in its lowest degree. Weakness is not mere incapacity, but strength in its lowest degree. And vice is not pure vice, but virtue at its lowest. In other words, evil is the minimum of good, weakness is the minimum of strength, and vice is the minimum of virtue. All the aspects of duality have a minimum and maximum and all intervening degrees. Perfection is no exception to this. The whole range of humanity is included within the two extremes of perfection and imperfection. And both perfection and imperfection are essentially matters of comparison, contrast, and relative existence. Perfection in the domain of duality is only relative perfection. It is only when one compares it with imperfection that it appears to one as perfection. Spiritual perfection distinguished from excellence. When perfection is concerned with duality, it consists in the excellence of some attribute or capacity. In this context, perfection in one aspect does not necessarily include perfection in other aspects. For example, someone who is perfect in science may not be perfect in singing, or someone who is perfect in singing may not be perfect in science. There is a sense in which excellence can be exhibited even in crimes. When a murder is committed in such a manner that not a single clue is left for tracing the murderer, it is called a perfect crime. Even in crimes or sins, then there is a sort of perfection. But this type of perfection, which consists in the excellence of a quality or capacity, should be carefully distinguished from spiritual perfection, which is not in the domain of duality. The different types of excellence that are characteristic of duality are all within the scope of the intellect. For such excellence can be easily envisaged by the extension, in imagination, of something good that is found in the limited experience of everyday life. The perfection that belongs to the spiritually realized souls is not in the domain of duality, and as such is entirely beyond the scope of the intellect. It has no parallel in the domain of duality. When a person becomes spiritually perfect, he knows that nothing exists but God, and that what seems to exist in the domain of duality and is capable of being grasped by the intellect is only illusion. For the spiritually perfect, God is the only reality. Science, art, music, weakness, strength, good, and evil are all nothing to him but dreams. His perfection consists in the knowledge of one indivisible existence. I pause here. Any questions? These are important distinctions. So you start with the two types of perfection, and then in the perfection in duality is only relative, and the gradations of perfection. And then you have spiritual perfection distinguished from excellence, and the fact that in duality you're only going to see the types of excellence from the limited scope of the intellect, right? So any questions, any thoughts, or I can continue?
I think let's go up a little bit, please. I
Sure.
think that one line is this line, the three lines, the perfection that belongs to the spiritually realized souls is not in the domain of duality, and as such is entirely beyond the scope of intellect. I think perhaps you could even highlight this. This is really
Yes, I have already highlighted it.
No, not that. The one below that.
Yeah.
The perfection that belongs to the spiritually realized soul is not in the domain of duality, and as such is entirely beyond the scope of intellect.
Yes.
Yeah, correct.
It's really profound. And
one point here, as we read through the next few lines, we come to existence, which is the first point in the seven realities.
yes,
So that is the epitome of everything.
very, very valid point, Mamaji.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, his perfection consists in the knowledge of one indivisible existence.
wow. So what comes out of this is that, he says science and all, everything is in the realm of duality. See, in our daily lives, we are also so wired up with what we do for our living or for our responsibilities, but actually it's all a part of duality.
Yes.
That is something really revealing that, we spend our entire lives, decades for pursuing our profession or whatever it is. Somewhere it is mentioned science, etc. Everything is part of duality somewhere.
Yes, so we need to make a distinction between excellence and perfection.
Yes.
Excellence is one area in duality. You may be so good that you are called as an excellent. So you are a finance excellent person, not all of us others. So like that, but it is in duality. So what is
Correct.
beyond intellect comes to the spiritual field, and there God is the only existence. That is the perfection.
One
Right.
that is aware of that reaches perfection.
Yes, but right, Mamaji. So perfection is given greater than excellence.
Yes.
So in the state of perfection, you go beyond duality. So you become all knowledge.
All.
So there will not be barriers of the language or the subject, because you will through perfection know everything that is happening actually. How the tree grows or how the atom functions, to that.
Correct.
Yeah, that's why it is perfect master.
Because he is
Yeah.
the creator and the ruler.
Yeah, he only has that title with him,
everything.
Not everybody else, anybody else. Yeah.
True. So with that, I'll just continue. All forms of excellence in spiritual perfection. When a spiritually perfect being wants to use all his knowledge and powers, it is always for the spiritual upliftment of other souls. His knowledge of others is not based upon their expressed thoughts. Thought comes first, and its expression in words follows later. As he directly knows the minds of all, he is not dependent upon the expression of thought. For him, words are unnecessary. If he wants to know something before it is manifested, he can do so. But he does so only when it is necessary for spiritual reasons. In the same way, if he wants to show excellence in any other matter, he can show it without any difficulty. All sorts of excellence are latent in spiritual perfection. Krishna, as the avatar, was not only spiritually perfect, but perfection personified. He was also perfect in everything. If he had wanted to, he could have shown himself as a perfect drunkard, a perfect sinner, a perfect rogue, or a perfect murderer. But that would have shocked the world. Though possessed of perfection in every respect, it was not necessary for him to exhibit it in fulfilling his mission. The spiritually perfect can exhibit supreme excellence in any mode of life that they may be required to adopt for the spiritual upliftment of other souls, but they do not do so merely to show themselves as perfect. This excellence is used by them only when there is a spiritual need for it, not merely to satisfy the curiosity of others. When they use such excellence, they do so with utter detachment. Just as a person who wears gloves may touch the dirt of a world without getting soiled, a spiritually perfect being can be engaged in universal activity without being bound by it. Perfection must be all-sided. Spiritual perfection is the full development of all the aspects of person. Yeah, sure.
The last sentence, just as a person who wears gloves may touch the dirt of the world without getting soiled, a spiritually perfect being can be engaged in universal activity without being bound by it. So this is sanskaras are not there for them. So this is the stage of the Sadguru, Avatar, and God Himself.
Realize, yeah.
Realize.
Yeah.
And one point I would like to have some clarification. Krishna as the Avatar was not only spiritually perfect, but perfection personified. So what Baba means by this perfection personified? Any
Personification means being in the body, in the avataric form. I think that is clear. And all avatars are perfect actually. Baba may be giving an example of Krishna here. Yeah. So I am reminded of a little anecdote actually. P.F. Khilnani, if you have heard of, he was a judge in Ahmednagar, and he became a Baba lover, and he fought legal cases for trust and Baba. So I heard from him only. He was talking to Baba, and some of the discussions he said, "What do you think about this, Baba? Can we do this?" So Baba just simply replied, "I don't think, I know." So that is the state the avatar is actually, because all that is happening, he knows what is the reality and what is going to happen. So that is the perfection actually. He knows. He doesn't have to think. Yeah. Jai Baba.
So this can be interpreted as manifested perfection.
Yeah. Jai Baba.
Correct. Manifested perfection.
Mamaji.
Infinite excellence. Excellence in all spheres and manifestation of that. Yeah, go ahead, Ashok.
Yeah, that's right, Karthik. Infinite excellence. So there is a term called Sarvagun Sampan. So that's for the God, the Almighty, the perfect Master. He would have all the perfections.
All attributes in excellence.
Yes, all attributes in excellence. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, Baba, since God is perfect and God comes in two aspects, Nirguna Nirakar, formless, state 2b, and Saguna Sakar, state 2c, which is the attribute, or which is the form that the 56 God realized souls, when they are in human form, take, and they are in state 2c, which is Saguna Sakar, which also the avatar adopts. So, as we know, according to the definition of spiritual perfection, means all rounded perfection. Why? Because he has infinite knowledge, infinite power, infinite bliss. So, you're perfect in everything. Even though we may question the activities of Rama or Krishna during their lives, our limited human mind doesn't have the capacity to analyze or understand why they did it. So, some people might say Krishna was fooling around with the gopis, or you could say that Rama was not good to Sita, you know. So these are basically questions that the limited human mind will ask because of our intellect. So that is why this chapter on perfection is comparing material perfection and spiritual perfection, where today we are influenced by the West to do well according to the Maslow's hierarchy, where we reach the stage of low self-esteem, which is what happened with the case study of Rajat Gupta and Rajaratnam, and whether it is Tiger Woods or the cyclist, so many different examples we have. Those are all material perfection in a specific sphere of life, but that doesn't mean that is real perfection. So Baba says real perfection is of a God realized being, which is the goal of every human being. And so, on that note, one of the things that which I had read many times, but I suddenly realized the insight of it was, about selfless service. But Baba made a quote, because there are many definitions to goal of creation as we go through discourses in different chapters. But one jumped out is like the goal of creation is to become perfect so as to make others perfect. So it's very interesting to see here. It might be a very selfish pursuit, but it is a good, it is the only longing, right? Longing for union with God or the perfect master is the same thing as God realization or self realization. So I think that is why this chapter is a very important chapter to understand, because we use the term perfection in our material life, like they just throw this word perfection. But this chapter really helps us to understand what real perfection is actually moving towards God realization. Jai Baba.
Super. Thank you. Perfection must be all-sided. Spiritual perfection is the full development of all the aspects of personality. So perfection must be all-sided. Perfection in one aspect is not perfection. It is only a lopsided growth of a faculty or capacity, resulting in inflexibility or the incapacity to adjust oneself to the ever-changing and multitudinous vicissitudes of life. Such a person cannot maintain a moving equilibrium of mind while keeping pace with the swift changes of life. If he is in an environment that by its nature gives scope for the faculty he has developed, he is temporarily happy and enjoys a sense of being in harmony with the world. But if he finds himself in a hostile environment where his faculty is unsuitable, he has a sense of failure and his poise is disturbed. Therefore, perfection implies perfection in every respect. Perfection includes opposites. If you try to grasp that,
Karthik,
sure,
I would
sure,
like
sure.
to stress on two sentences or phrases here. Such a person cannot maintain a moving equilibrium of mind. Moving equilibrium of mind. So mind needs to be moving, but it should be in equilibrium. That is directly related to poise is undisturbed.
Inner poise,
Inner
and adjustment with the world.
Yeah.
The two things required as per Beams.
Yes.
Good point. Any other phrase that you wanted to point out here? I think he's done. Okay. Perfection. Actually, we can stop here, given that we are almost running out of time. And we wanted, and Pashmina wanted to say something. So go ahead, Pashmina.
Yeah, I just wanted, I was thinking of starting an online book club for us to discuss spiritual books. So if anybody is interested, other than Baba books, because that we are already discussing here, so that would give us new dimensions about life, books that all of us have read. We can take 5 or 10 minutes to talk about the book that you have read, which impressed you, and that way we can communicate.
Yeah, you can post that on the group, but I think from our focus, we are, we are very focused on Baba literature alone, and we do not promote other things because it just leads to.
No, not in this group. Not in this group.
Sorry, I didn't get what books. What books are these?
No, not in this group. I'm planning
what books
to have
are we talking about? I'm sorry,
spiritual
I
books.
didn't hear it properly.
Spiritual books. Spiritual books. Books that we have read, each of us,
sure.
and the books that have impressed us, or something that we want to share. That not in this group, but I'm planning to start a different book club online for like-minded people. That will give us new dimensions of life, not giving up our own belief system, but adding something more to us.
Yeah,
so if
that's a good idea, but
if anybody is
for
interested,
me, I mean,
tell me.
I've reached Baba's ocean, so I've stopped reading anything else. It's a good initiative, but not for me. Thank you.
Right. So if there is interested, anybody in your group, anyone who's basically educated.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good starting point. Yeah, sure. If you prepare a link or something, you can share it with us and we can pass it around. That'll be a good idea.
Yes. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jai Baba.
Great. So again, we'll end the day with probably a prayer for, given that we are again in the throes of this crisis, which is only getting worse, or at least that's what the media wants us to believe, I think. But the least we can do is offer our prayers and invoke Baba's grace on the world and all of us. There's an echo because I think there's some couple of mics open. So I request everybody to, yeah, Namita.
Baba, Sanjay ji around?
Yes.
Yes, Namita ji.
संजय जी एक गाना होना चाहिए ना, बाबा को माफी मांगते हैं हम लोग, ये सब हो रहा है तो दिल से उनको याद करते हैं. If you can oblige, please, let's remember Baba through a song.
Give me a minute or so. You can keep discussing.
If others allow.
Very good idea.
Karthik, is it okay?
Absolutely, I'm totally supportive.
Thank you. Then ये पर्दा हटा दो.
आप बात करना continue करिए. I'll take a minute or so. You
We
can
are
keep
all
talking.
going in veiled like this.
Yeah.
Mama ji is saying something on mute.
Okay. Unprepared. Okay.
Video? No video? Sanjay?
Video? You want a video? Okay. Let me. Okay. Okay. अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय.
की जय।
धन धन भाग है धन्य जन्म मोरा, आज सफल करायो। आज मिली सागर से सरिता, आज मिली सागर से सरिता। अपने आप भुलायो, मैंने जिसकी आस की मन में, आज सुदिन वो आयो। मोरे मन की आस पुरायो, मेहर दरस दिखायो। मैंने जिसकी आस की मन में, आज सुदिन वो आयो। देखत नैन हुए हैं बावरे, आज अनूप सुख पायो। देखत नैन हुए हैं बावरे, आज अनूप सुख पायो। मोह लियो मन सुंदर मुख ने, गयो सुध बुध बिसरायो। मैंने जिसकी आस की मन में, आज सुदिन वो आयो। साच कही तोरी महिमा सबने, तेरो अंत न पायो। साच कही तोरी महिमा सबने, तेरो अंत न पायो। ज्ञान से जान सके ना कोई, ज्ञान से जान सके ना कोई। प्रेम से सबने पायो, मैंने जिसकी आस की मन में, आज सुदिन वो आयो। किस विधि कहूँ मैं मोरे जिया में, आनंद नहीं समायो। किस विधि कहूँ मैं मोरे जिया में, आनंद नहीं समायो। मधुसूदन कहे बार बार यही, मधुसूदन कहे बार बार यही। भाग बड़े मैं पायो, मैंने जिसकी आस की मन में, आज सुदिन वो आयो। अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय।
अवतार मेहर बाबा
जय
जय।
बाबा की जय।
जय बाबा, जय बाबा। थैंक यू,
जय बाबा।
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay ji.
जय बाबा, थैंक यू।
Jai Baba. Good Sunday.
Our
Happy Sunday
prayers
to
are with
everybody.
you, Ashok, as you tide through this personal moment of anxiety. And may Baba do the best. May Baba do what is right. So, and with that, all of you, have a great week ahead. And I just had one passing thought, and I wanted to share it with everybody. I think to stay safe, one of the easy techniques that I've heard is hot water and steaming. So please, it's harmless, right? Both of those things are harmless. So this current wave is very, very infectious. So 3 times a day, if you can spend 5 minutes, 10 inhalations through the mouth, 10 exhalations through the mouth, and then reverse the process. Take the steam through the mouth and then get it out through the nose. Do it 3 times a day. I think it's harmless, and we might feel silly if it doesn't.
How many minutes
10,
do you
10,
recommend? 10 minutes.
5 minutes. 5 minutes. If you have those space steam inhalers, the small ones that you use for face packs and stuff, just 5 minutes is more than enough. But do it 3 times a day. So even if it comes in, you're able to throw it out more frequently. So I think I started the practice with rigor from last 3 days. And I thought I should share with the group so that everybody should do it, even if you're not going out and getting exposed. Just stay safe, and I hope
stay positive.
I don't
Stay, have faith,
stay positive,
faith
yes.
in your masters.
What do you steam or you? How do you do it?
Do you know these face pack steamers, the small ones that you put your face into? Do you have one of those, Namita? Or you can order one on Amazon. I'll probably send you a link. Else, you can use the old-fashioned technique, which is basically use a vessel, boil the water, and then put a towel over your head and the vessel, and then put your face in. 5 minutes of that is good enough.
Yeah.
So that's for immediate
I think
use.
that's a good idea.
Yeah. फेशियल भी हो जाएगा नमिता जी साथ में
फेशियल भी हो जाएगा
फेशियल भी हो जाएगा
Yes, I think.
अब इससे ज्यादा
हमारा
सुंदर
भी हो
नहीं मुझे
जाएगा
दिखना है.
हम लोग भी कर लेंगे
Nice suggestion. Thank you for the.
Stay positive and stay away from TV. Just read online whatever is relevant and just go off.
Yeah, that's correct.
And
Yes.
even if
Stay
you
positive, but don't test positive.
Yeah, and
yes, true.
the three vitamins which have been widely recommended is vitamin D, C, and zinc.
Jai Baba. In his
Zinc,
divine
yeah.
will we submit.
So yeah, that supplements are good to have. Yeah.
Sure, of course. Ashok, you were saying something.
Yeah, I said thanks everyone. I received a lot of messages, messages in my this trying times, and I only pray everybody should pray. As we speak, I got a call. My mother is in her actually very critical and last stages. So I only request this divine good group, this family I have.
Jai Baba.
We all pray for her.
Jai Baba.
Ashok ji. Yeah.
May Baba make it easy on her. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Appreciate it.
Take care, Ashok.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba. Khalid bhai. Jai Baba.